You've reached Monster 911, and I'm Lance Hightower. I've been taking cryptid emergency calls for over 5 years. If you have a cryptid emergency, please call our toll-free number, 866-306-8085. I can help you. What's your emergency? Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's so good to have you tuning in once again to Monster 911. I'm Lance Hightower, your podcast host, cryptid therapist, as well as in-the-field investigator to the unexplainable, the terrifying, the very real presence of living and breathing monsters living in the woods all across America. And if you're not a subscriber yet, then please hit that subscribe button right now. But with a warning here, this show can be very addicting to listen to. And if you've been witness to something that was indescribable, something that frightened you, or something you just weren't sure of, it doesn't have to walk on 2 or 4 legs. It can be in the air, folks. I want to know what happened. Especially if you're shaking in your shoes just a little bit, then you should share what happened. You can call me at 1-866-306-8085. I usually respond within 24 hours or less. Some of the things I've been doing recently, I've been in the field filming for you guys while camping at night. That's right, you're not going to want to miss those shows. Also, I've recently been fortunate enough to locate and purchase a truck I'll be using for my in-the-field investigations, which I'll reveal to you soon. I want to have some comments from you guys. And be sure and visit our social media platforms. They're listed down below. We have our website at www.monster911.com, and visit our store there. You'll get look at the merch. There's some really cool things for everyone, the whole family, and especially your Bigfooter friends that are out there. Also, we'll be releasing a multi-series of exclusive shows. With each series, we'll release a show each day. You heard me right, a show each day. We'll have 5 series. The first one is The War with Dogman. The next one, The Kansas Bigfoot. Next one, A Texas Ranger Told Me We Know Bigfoot Exists But Never Tell. The next one, Family Sees a Werewolf in Town. And the last one, Guy in a Ghillie Suit, No Way. So let's move on. Let's move on here, guys. So in this part 1 of 2 shows here, we hear the story from an eyewitness based in a small, quaint Ohio town that is very typical of everyone knows everyone type of community, and which is not unlike many of the small townships across America, right? One night, however, everything changed. Our eyewitness was in her backyard, and indescribably something began to feel strange, as a sense of uneasy crept across the night air and brought with it a putrid odor that alerted our guest that something was nearby and very wrong. And what she experienced that night would honestly change her life forever. So you're up in Ohio, are you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've lived out in the country for a while, too.
Yeah, I was, my mom brought me about down south about the age of 12, 11. So I've been in this town off and on for most of my life, and I don't really like the city. It's just how my mom wanted to raise me. So.
Sure. That's good living. That's good
Oh,
living. Yeah.
I always tell people there's no comparison to living in the country.
Right.
Oh my God, I got something to tell you, man. I only moved away for about 2 or 3 years, and I've lived here off and on, like I said, since I was 12. So I've lived here for the better portion of my life. I'm 28 now, so I was never really too keen into staying indoors as a kid, and I would go off on my own and want to explore and such, and I would go out into fields and huge fields that nobody owned and just look for like deer racks that, were just land. And that's kind of, my childhood was just not always out hunting. I just didn't never have the heart to break, to kill something. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But, well, just the other night, a couple nights ago, my best buddy's grandma died, and he's taken it to pretty hard. It is just a shatter to his family, and I just stayed up late talking with him because it just had him in pieces, and he's just torn up. And so we stayed up till like 3:45 in the morning, just talking,
Right.
trying to be there for him.
Sure.
And I got off the chat with him, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. But my dogs were, they kind of throw themselves up rather than jumping. They push off the ground and jump, kind of. It's weird. But my one dog, he throws himself off the ground into the air. He like pushes himself off. And so he does his little pop pops, is what I call it. And he was wanting to go outside. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I'm thinking, like, I just got this terrible, terrible, awful feeling. And I'm like, for some reason, I don't want to take them, and I love
Hmm.
to take my dogs out. And I was thinking to myself, like, I don't know what it is, but tonight I just don't feel like doing it because something's wrong. And I was thinking to myself, like, they ain't gonna be going inside. We ain't having that. So everybody, we got to go outside. So I went and took them downstairs. I'm shaking my head like, you know, what is this feeling? Something's going on. Like, it just would, bad feeling was going on, and I didn't know what it was. Just, hair on the back of your neck,
Mm-hmm.
something just terrible. I just felt terrible. I didn't know why. So I let my dogs out, and I let them out. It's just me by myself, and they're outside, and they walk out, and just immediately I get hit with an odor, and I'm thinking that's not good because when you live in the country, you pretty much got fresh air, and I do got neighbors, and so if I smell something, usually it's their fireplace on, or that's
Mm-hmm.
it, just fresh air, pine trees and fresh air. So if I smell something, it's almost immediate. As soon as I walk out the door, if something's going on, I mean, this is the first time I've ever smelled a smell like that. It was like rotten vegetables. The only thing I could even try to place it to, but it was so pungent and strong, it was on my tongue. I was like,
Hmm.
oh God, I was like almost gagging. Um, and I was getting so scared. I was like, I don't know what the hell is going on. So sorry.
No, that's okay. You speak freely. I didn't say that at the beginning, but you speak freely. You however you are. I want to know. This is about you. It's not about me. So you speak however you need to. Okay.
All right. I'm sorry about that. But
No, no problem. No problem at all.
so I was just, minding my own business, just trying to let my dogs out. And like I said, I just opened the door and I just immediately get kind of hit with this, extreme fear wave. It just came over me like something so strong that just at first I was like, not strong enough to like buckle your knees or not, nothing like that. But I felt like my stomach, my heart was just in my stomach. And I just was like, something is really wrong and going. And I just should have listened to that inner voice in me because not even a couple seconds later, it was like World War III was in my backyard, man. I don't even know. There was so much activity last night, but I'm sitting there and I got the dogs out in the yard and it's a backyard. We've got a solar light, but when it's Christmas time and everything, it just don't come on as much because it's real foggy and there's just not enough sun that gets into it. So solar light didn't even come on. So I'm back there and I got no light and I'm thinking, what is going on? And it's one of these things where, you step out on your back door every night and you let your dogs out, so you get pretty familiar with what's going on. And this was like whole 360. Like, it's so hard to talk about.
That's okay. Take your time. Take your time. We're in no hurry.
I
No
appreciate
hurry.
that. Thank you.
Yep. Just take your time. This is about you. It's lots of folks when they start getting into it, you start reliving it, especially it just happened. I mean, literally yesterday. So when I talk to
Yeah,
a lot of folks, they've had experiences years ago and they don't get to really talk to anybody freely because they're always concerned about how the other person's going to take them. But we've had our own experiences, and you're in this unique club, if you will. It's in, and you don't want to be a part of it, but when you are, you can speak freely without ridicule, without judgment, and you can just say whatever you saw, and you can't take that away from someone. You saw what you saw, you heard what you heard, you felt what you
yeah,
felt, you smelt what you smelt, and so all those senses come in to this encounter or what someone witnesses, and it's very emotional. It's very emotional.
yeah. I've been just absolutely a bottle of nerves. I didn't even get to sleep until like 6 a.m. I didn't even sleep until
Oh
it was
my.
sunlight out because there were things that happened after this that made everything worse too. But so in the backyard, and as I was going, I'm walking out with the dogs. I had gone and got my flashlight, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And I'm standing still, kind of trying to listen and really observe everything. I'm trying to absorb as much sound, smell, not so much the smell, because it was not awful, but it was gross, and it was just a strange smell. And I'm thinking, what is that? What is going on? And I'm looking, I'm listening, and I'm just kind of trying to, because the first thing that my dogs did, and the first thing I did, as soon as I opened the door, we just got hit by a wave of just rank, rotten kind of, like, not like rotten potatoes or something, that got left behind somewhere with your nephew or,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
right.
just like, um, just a weird odor. And I've never smelled that in my whole life. And I'm thinking, all right, something's going on. As soon as I smelled that, the dogs, I opened the door, their heads dropped, they were like, they were
Oh.
immediately like, what is that? Because they didn't even, usually they would rush out and just be like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
they just kind of meagerly kind of went out the door, and, they got down in there and they're just kind of slowly walking around. And I've had dogs my entire life. When they do that, you need to know, you need to focus, and you need to watch them, because those
Mm-hmm.
dogs will save your life 110-fold. Like, so I've always had dogs, and I know their behavior. They knew something was going on too, and so like I'm trying to hurry them, and I'm looking around, and I start noticing that there's a huge gaggle of deer just to my right. And I was thinking, deer don't smell like that. I've
Mm.
heard deer. I've been in the woods. I've been in close quarters with skunks, and I've been in close quarters with bobcats. Unfortunately, I had an encounter with one of those, and it was not fun. Um, but you just kind of pick up their smells a little bit, and I'm just thinking, deer do not smell like this. I just was so like, curious, and I'm like, kind of kind of sniffing and walking around and kind of sniffing, and my dogs were doing it too. So we're just kind of like making like a couple steps here and kind of going in one direction. No, it ain't over here, and I'm kind of trying to sense where everything's coming from and everything. And as
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching everything, I see these deer. Like I said, I noticed that they were to my right, and there was about maybe five, six, seven of them. And I live on a very small plot of land. I don't even have hardly anything at all. One little tiny half acre, maybe an acre. And I live in a very small town, but we're surrounded by about 300 plus acres. So we pretty
Oh,
much,
okay.
we're out here. Like, it's a short drive to a hospital if you need it. It's like maybe 10 miles, a couple minutes, but we are surrounded by woods. And
Okay.
I got a neighbor closest to me, and it's pretty much a small village. We're not even considered a town. We're a village. And I'm back in the backyard, and I just have this tiny little plot of land. I seen the deer on the right of me on my neighbor's property, and I'm used to this, you know, set of deer. I've never had any problem with this herd. They come up and they just pick what they want out of my garden, like always. And I'm just minding my own business. And so, the deer are over there, and I'm just letting them get what they want because, snow was coming anytime soon. So I'm just like, have at, boys.
Right,
So,
right.
uh, I seen those deer. There's only about six, seven of them. All of a sudden, everything went to hell in a handbasket. Um, those deer, they were standing still, and then just I saw all their heads snap up, like, as soon as they hear something, their heads will pop up real quick.
Right.
And I saw all these individualized heads, one, two, three, four, five, six, whatever, and they're all looking, and they're all like, huh, left and right, and all this. And then all of a sudden, just something happened, and they all took off down the back of my property. and it's connected to my neighbor's property. So they're running down this strip, causing all types of racket. You know, sticks and branches, twigs are just snapping left and right. And I'm like, oh, something got the better of them or something. And I'm still freaked out because of the smell, the eerie feeling that I've got, and my dogs are acting bizarre. And I'm like, yeah, they're saying something's going on, so I'm just gonna stay back towards the doorways. And so when the deer did that, my dogs start freaking out too, and I'm like, so something here I don't see or what, you know? And so the deer are flushed out. They're going down towards the road. I've got road behind my house. I've got road in front of my house,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a little wraparound kind of, but they go running down the yard. It's a weird yard. It's just a sheer hill, just straight down, 49-degree angle or something like that. So they go taking off, but everything gets all wacky. They start coming out, one, two, three, coming out of the woods like something's scaring them over here, but now something's scaring them over here. So they were going down, and then they jackknife, and they just all get crazy with it. Like they just all were going one way, and then all of a sudden something else changed, and they start coming back up, and they're like running like they're running for their lives. Not straight, not forward. These things are zigzagging, taking off, dip dodging, all that they can do to get away from whatever was down there. And I'm thinking, okay, well, something's up here and something's down there, because it just don't take a genius to put two and two together.
Right. When you're watching those animals and how they're moving, yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got like a pack mentality or something, you know, um, hell, half the deer didn't even stay together. They were just like every man for himself, and they got the out. I've seen six, seven, whatever, how many deer just come running out in every direction. I was scared that one of these deer were going to jump in the yard with me, because I'm like, what can I do for you, buddy? I don't even know what's going on,
Right.
you know?
I'll chime into that here after a bit, after you get through, and I'll tell you another encounter that was very similar, and then I'll tell you what we believe, me and the eyewitness believe what happened. But I'll let you go ahead. Please continue.
All right. Feel free to interrupt if there's anything. But so I'm like scared because I had a deer come running straight past my fence. I had a deer come running over, you know, directly across, two, three of them running straight, but kind of zigzagging back and forth and going crazy, bumping into each other, falling. Told you it was like World War III, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And I didn't hear anything behind me or anything like that for a good minute, so it was quiet. But at the same time, everything was loud. So like behind me was quiet, but like in front of me, World War III, pure chaos, deer running everywhere, like a freaking grenade went off or something. And I'm sitting there myself like, I have never seen deer act this way in my whole life. I can sit here on my backyard and see these deer every other night. I know this little crew. They've never acted like this, so this was like really something was happening. I've never seen them start up like that ever. I mean, my dog barks at them. They're just like, yeah, whatever, buddy, and they just, you know, carry on with their business. But and I'm standing there, and then all of a sudden, I see it. I had gotten my flashlight at this point in time because I'm getting way too spooked, and I'm thinking, holy shit, something's going down. I turn around, grab my flashlight, and as soon as I went to turn the flashlight on, I turn on the flashlight, and I look down the hill, and I catch the ass end of what I knew was like a white-tailed deer, because they got that little strip of white in their booty area, in
Mm-hmm.
their tail. And then I just kind of turn. I'm like, he's running from something from this way, so I'm going to kind of turn this way. And as I'm going from left to right, I see it, and it's standing there just broad in my yard. And I see this thing. It couldn't have been more than 60 yards from me.
How
I
far?
was like,
How far?
about 60 yards, if that.
60 yards?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was so scared. The moment I saw it, I was like, what the is that? And now I've had another encounter with something very similar, and I was like, still like, what the
Right.
I'm just looking and I'm like, it's right there, no more than 60 yards from me in my yard, which of all the yards, and I probably have the smallest yard in the whole town. And I'm like, why me? And if I could just kind of bleep out the town name because
Oh, I
I just
will.
don't want
I
it.
I don't use names, specific locations, street
I
addresses.
appreciate that.
I don't do that just for your for confidentiality purposes.
Yeah, I would greatly appreciate that.
So you see this in your backyard, 60
Yeah.
yards away. It's in your little property, your neck of the woods there. You see, and it's standing broadside to you, or is it standing just front?
No, it's like a broad. It was going across the yard, and had I not turned on the flashlight exactly when I did, and believe me when I tell you, I got a high-powered flashlight for the yard. Um, it's a really good type of flashlight. It's like the extreme, like really good ones, but they're like a black flashlight and they're like extremely good. They're like cop flashlights, sort of, but like
Okay,
better.
like an LED, like a really powerful LED light.
Yeah, so I could see pretty well. I could see
Okay.
it pretty well.
Oh wow.
And like I said, I'm 60 yards, so that's nothing for one of these LEDs. Yeah, and
So it was on two legs, and was it?
no, four.
It was on four legs, and did it turn at you when you shine the light on it?
When it was walking, it had gone like from crossing one side of my property to the next. It had already gone like 70% of my property, maybe a good 60% of my property. It had already crossed that little pathway there. But right as it's crossing, and I turn it on, and I just seen the deer, and it was only like a half second. I just turned to my right just a little fraction, and that's when I seen it. And it was standing like facing the straight, but to me, I could see its whole, like, I don't know, left side. I could see its whole left side, all the whole thing from one side to from its like head all the way to its tail. I saw the full body.
And when you saw this at 60, did it turn and look at you?
It turned its head to look at me, and I could just see that. At first, I was like, holy crap, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, what the crap? Because it did like a deer in the headlight thing, and it just stood still. And
Oh,
it just looked at me, and I looked at it for what felt like a long time, like maybe a good solid 30 seconds. I'm looking at it. And then I have this flashlight, and you can kind of pull it, and it tightens, it kind of tightens up the viewing. I pull out the viewer, and it goes inward, the light. So the light goes like it shrinks, but it gets brighter when you do that.
okay.
So I did that, and I had like the mindset like I got to get a better look at this. So I pull that, and I'm looking right at it, and it's still looking at me. Ain't moved. It's just looking. And I think for a second it was confused. I think it thought that that was my. This is the part that gets me because I'm like, I think it was thinking that it was just my usual light, and it just wasn't phased. It was like, oh, that's the light. And then when I'm, flashlighting it and I go in on its face, it like kind of looked backwards, and it looked back at where it had come from, because in order for it to go back to any type of bush, it had to cross like 100% of my neighbor's yard, which was a lot bigger than mine, and then only like maybe 50% of my yard to get into the bushes. So it just looked back at my bush line, and then it looked back at me, and then it made that decision to turn around. So I got to see this thing's whole body. It turned around, and it, started walking back where the it came from. I was like, there is no way this is happening right now. And I am just shaking my whole core and everything. And I'm looking at this thing in its full view. And they are so much bigger than people make them out to be.
Well, with that said, that's my next question. Give me a size description. Now, when you say it was walking, it was on four legs, correct?
It had to have been on all four when I seen it,
Okay.
but um, it was definitely walking on all four. It just looked like the biggest dog you would ever imagine seeing, but it wasn't a dog, and the way that the body was more dog-like than man. And I've seen it before. I don't know if I've seen this exact creature because there's no way I could possibly know if it was the exact one I saw, but I saw this type of creature once before when I was like 16, and I can get into that, but I knew I was like looking at that same thing from years and years and years ago, and I'm like just baffled. I was just like, wow, the height on this thing was so it was so big. It would take up most of my kitchen. And my kitchen, it's like 13 foot wide, like across, and I've got 9 foot tall ceilings. I don't know who built this house, but it is a 9 foot tall ceiling wall, like 9 foot tall, and the walls are 9 foot tall. And so the ceiling is 9 foot tall, and like, but from my kitchen, from one side of my kitchen all the way to the other, it might be about 12 to 13 foot wide. It was every bit of that. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I could not believe that I saw this thing and I was this close to it. And I was like,
My gosh.
just beside myself. I was so scared. I was just standing there trying not even to breathe. And it turned, and like I said, it looked back at the brush line and realized it had further to go over to my neighbor's house. And so it looked at the brush line, looked at me, looked back at the brush line, decided to walk into the brush. And I'm thinking, this is a thinking. This thing can think.
Mm-hmm.
It just decided to do that. It doesn't want to be out in the open. So it went into the brush line. And as far as what looks was on its face and all of that, it just had a pretty bland kind of expression. But it was so big, just the overall size of this thing. I cannot even.
So when you're saying the length from nose to tail, it would equal the width or the length in your kitchen is.
Like, I'm saying this thing was about the size of an average pickup truck. I was like, holy shit,
Oh,
that big.
wow.
I was
Wow.
so scared. The only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat and my dogs sniffing this whole time. They've been, they're just sniffing and sniffing, and the only thing, my heart is just boom, 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 boom. My heart is beating. I am just sitting there, and I am just like terrified of what I'm looking at. And it is so gargantuan and big. I was like, it is the size of a freaking pickup truck.
Do you
I
think
was
then,
like,
with that being that big, do you think it was over 1,000 pounds?
oh, I don't even know.
Was it bigger than a full grown cow? Just
I
a.
would definitely say it was definitely bigger than a cow. And I've been around my fair share of cattle. I had a couple calves. I know that the average calf can go around, like, I don't know, 200 pounds because I had about five calves. And this was so much bigger than a cow, like
Oh, wow.
at least a good as far as width and like how broad it was, as far as like from teat to back and everything, just like it's like overall like girth. I
Mm-hmm.
would probably put it around maybe a good 3.5 to 4 foot in just girth. I was like,
Wow.
holy crap. I mean, the musculature and the definition that I saw was pretty defined, but it was furry and shaggy and black as the night. And I could barely make out enough detail just on, you know, the, but I mean, I saw it. It's one whole side, and then it looked and then looked away and then looked again and then turned around, showed me its other side, its ass end, and all of its glory, and ball sack and all.
Oh, really?
And
That so you saw that much detail?
it was pretty good detail, but being 60 yards, I mean, if you go out and you stand middle of the night and you come up on a bowl, you shine a flashlight on it, you're going to see a tail and a very large set of nuts. They were like weird because its ball sack was kind of like shinier than the rest of it because they just didn't have much fur on them.
Yeah, probably not
What
much
a
hair or wore off or something. I don't know, but that's
It's a
some.
strange detail to try to like. It's so weird to talk about.
Sure,
Oh,
sure.
and I mean, I can't even. I didn't even really get a good look at its feet, but for all its glory, I saw its whole right side. Sorry, there's a truck, semi truck passing by, and so they get just a little excited.
Oh, that's
But
okay. That's okay.
scared me half to death when he barked. Oh my God, I've been just a whole bag of nerves for the last. So, but they, they're probably feeding off some of my energy tonight because I'm spazzed and I'm,
Yeah.
you know, it got so much worse from there on out, man. It got worse. So I thought it was going to kill my dogs and possibly me. It wasn't that it was aggressive or tried to really, it really didn't do very much, but it turned around and it went into the brush line and I had no vision of it, but my dogs knew where it was. And it was so damn big, but it being completely black, totally midnight, past midnight, it was like 3:35, 3:45 in the morning, so I couldn't really make out where it was, but I knew it was back in the brushes just off the corner of my house, and then 30 yards from the corner of my house is where there's a big brush line and there's fencing. And so right at the foot of that fencing, it came up to my fencing, and it was like trying to intimidate me and my dogs. And I've never been more scared in my entire life standing that close to something that big.
Hmm.
And I don't know what in all the God graces there are, what reason it would have to come up other than it was trying to snag one of my dogs because I ruined its dinner. And I was thinking, not today, buddy. I don't care. You will not have my dogs. I was like trying to get them in. I was yelling for them, and they're snapping and they're bar rah rah rah. And then it picks up once it's gotten closer, and they're starting to carry on. And the other, there's a lady 2, 3 houses back. I could see her front door. She steps out, and I was just like, it's the coyotes. Coyotes, don't worry. Go back inside, because I'm trying to tell her, like, you shouldn't be out right now. Like,
Oh,
I just,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had the mindset to at least worry about her. And I'm thinking, should I just go inside? And I'm just like, I can't just leave my dogs. These are my children. So I'm like, I'm not leaving my dogs out here. I didn't even really even hesitate. I just was like trying to call my dogs in, and the lady comes out, and I'm like, coyotes, go back in, it's coyotes. And so she snatched her dog up too and brought him inside. Thank God, because she was letting her dog out, and she's like 200-300 yards from me, and I was yelling, coyotes, coyotes, get your dogs in. And she took her doggy in, and she was actually just letting him out as soon as I seen the light come on, and I seen her step out. And here I got this thing no more than from my back door to where my fence line sits. It couldn't be more than 15 to 20 yards, if that, maybe 13, 15 yards. I don't know. And then the brush line, I don't know where it was in that brush line, but that brush line is right past the fence. It's right on it. So, you know, there, it's only like a 4 foot tall fence. It ain't stopping nothing.
Right.
It is not going to stop nothing besides my dogs. That's it. And they're big dogs. These are bulldogs. They don't play. They do not play at all. If something, they felt that they needed to protect me for the life of God, they will give every ounce of themselves to do that. And so I was like, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to get my dogs in here. And so, it came up, and I didn't hear it move from all the way back there all the way up to here. I couldn't hear it move at all. I heard hardly anything. And besides a couple little twigs I heard, and you wouldn't just believe how incredibly quiet something that big could be. It is so quiet. You wouldn't even know it was around you or moving or nothing. And so it came up to the side of the property, and that's when things took a whole new level. the deer had already long gone, and my dogs are sitting there and they're barking. And as soon as it had come up to the back of the property line, I knew it had gotten close. And I'm thinking, this could be a moment where I die if I don't go inside now, but I have to get my dogs. And I'm like, I will not let something like this, I won't let this be their end. You know, they don't deserve that. So I'm trying. Come on, babies, come on, get inside, get inside. And I'm hollering for them. I'm, come on, get inside, get inside. And I'm calling for them. I'm telling them, get inside, come on. And they're out there, and they were bark, 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 bark at first, and then it, picked up to the, and they're like snarling and snapping, and they're just trying to put on their toughest face, and their their hackles were totally up, and they're snarling and snapping and carrying on, and I couldn't see it. It was just so dark, and I'm looking in those bushes, and I'm fanning those bushes and trying to see it, but it's just so blackout, I couldn't see where it was at. And then, the dogs, all at once, three things happened. There was this weird noise that I heard that I cannot explain nor duplicate, because I only caught a little bit of it because my dogs were carrying on so loud. But heard something to the back of me, heard something to the side of my house, and this is where I kind of started thinking maybe I'm definitely in over my head, because I started thinking those deer ran from something up here earlier, and it's been sitting there this whole freaking time waiting for me to walk out into the dark. Whatever it was right off the side of my house, and I wasn't but no more than 3 feet from whatever's over here, and then something else is right in front of me. And I'm thinking, what do I even do in this scenario? I've got no gun. I don't even have a permit or anything for a gun. And I'm thinking, I'm shark bait right now, and my dogs are just pissing it off. And so I heard this noise behind me. I believed I heard one. And then I also heard something come from whatever was in front of me. So that's possibly two of them. And I'm like, what do I even do? And my dogs at once just had like this, something like switched in them, and they just knew that they had to back up. Like it was the first time they seen it, and they both was going from bark bark to snarling, and then all of a sudden it's gone from and they're growling to and then all of a sudden they just both put their asses on my knees. They're both backed up to me doing their best. And I know that also, to confirm that something was also to my right, my other dog kind of like was keeping her eye over at the right, but also watching the one to the front of them. So like, she was looking that way, and so was he, and they're like looking at themselves and then looking back at these other two things. And because they were looking at each other, looking right and looking left and then looking right again, and they know that they're in between this whole sandwich, and they're just trying to do their best to protect me. So just, I didn't even care if I got a hernia or not. I just picked them both up from underneath their bellies, and they got scared from that, and they were, and crying, and they thought it was something else, snatched them up. So I grabbed both of my dogs, and just with all the strength and the adrenaline and my legs, and I'm 4'11", I am probably a little overweight, but with all the strength that I had and all the might that I could muster in that moment, I picked up a 60-pound bulldog and a 20-pound part bulldog. So I just picked them both up and did like this huge squat, and I just turned around and was like, nope. And I just tried climbing up the back steps, and I got them in there, and I slammed that door, and I just locked it, and I stood there for the longest time listening. And I'm thinking to myself, that is the stupidest thing I've ever freaking done in my whole life. And then after I got the dogs inside, and they're still sitting there, and, it really scared them when I snatched them up like that. But it was my only one chance that I could get to save my dogs, because I felt like it was either then or that's it. They were probably going to get killed right then and there. But
my goodness.
I got them inside, and I shut that door, and I locked it, and I'm sitting there, and I had some old weights down in the basement from a surgery that I had, and so I would, do a couple exercises with those, and I'm stacking them, just little arm weights. I'm stacking everything against it. I almost even considered taking a brand new Maytag and just pushing it over in front of that door. And I'm thinking, could this even hold that door closed?
Well, probably not.
Nope.
I'll talk about that here in a minute. But so you had a feeling that there was two, and I'll get into that here in a minute, because when you see one, there is usually always two.
Yeah, that's like deer. If you see one crossing the road, you really got to slow down because there's always either
Yes.
one right behind it. Almost always.
Yes. And they usually hunt in packs. And when I say a pack is more than one. And they hunt extremely smart. They actually will cause diversions. And so one will place itself out into the open while the other is hidden. And so we'll run the deer into the one that's hidden. And they will flank, they will push deer, very much how sometimes hunters will place someone on the end of a property, and then the other hunters will make a lot of racket and walk in, and that way the deer passes by the person sitting still and being quiet.
Oh my God.
They do the very same thing. They do the very same thing. And I've seen this more than one time. I've seen it dozens of times with eyewitnesses that have encountered these numerous times right in the middle of a hunt. And so they've caught them at various stages of a hunting pattern, and there may be there may be more than two during a pack, but you see one and there's food around, there's usually another one causing a diversion or creating that's willing to be seen, while the other is very secluded, very hidden, that you don't see. And so that happens a lot.
And it drives me up the wall thinking that I was, I was probably about 20 yards from one in front of me, but then I heard that sound, and whatever it was like a guttural type noise, just like a, kind of like, I can't even really there's no way I can get to it, but it was like a gruff. And
like a
really
deep gruff. When did that occur? When you were with the dogs?
That was seconds before I decided to grab my dogs.
Okay.
Right after, because they had gone from barking. Then it started, like, whenever it turned around and it came up, and that's when they started barking real hard. And then they started barking real intently. And the lady came out, and I was like, no, go back in. Coyotes. And then seconds later, it's right at the foot of the fence line, and I can't see it because it's pitch dark, but I'm looking with my flashlight every which way. And when the dogs, they had picked up from a whole new level of intensity, from just, barking to snarling. And within seconds, they were like, there's a moment with a dog where, shit's going on. When they start snarling, they'll sometimes get to snarling in other dogs, but you can really tell, because I've never seen my dog's full set of teeth. And the whole time I've known these dogs, I've never seen their full teeth. This was the only time I've ever seen it. I mean, I saw, they were barking and snapping and snarling, and then all of a sudden there was just this moment where everything changed for the dogs, and they were like, ah, and they made that noise, and I was thinking, did something snatch them? And I'm looking right at my dogs, and it's so dark you can barely even see, and I'm like, what the? And that's the moment. A second later, I heard this noise, like right on my right. Literally couldn't have been more than 6 feet from me. I'm thinking, I hear this like a gruff, like it's just a, whatever it was. That is as close as I can get to making the noise. And it was just a gruff, and it was so deep, and it was so profoundly disturbing that as soon as you hear something like that, you almost shit yourself, literally, because as soon as I came inside, I locked the doors as much as I could, and I had to go. It was right then and right there. Like, I had to run upstairs And I'm getting my dogs upstairs, and I'm running up the stairs like a kid in a candy shop trying to get to the toilet fast enough. And I know I locked
Mm,
the door up as much as I could, but
right.
when I heard that noise, I just knew. I picked my dogs up and was like, nope. And I just put them in as much as I got them inside and started putting everything against the door. And I was standing down there as much as I could. And I'm, kind of doing a poop dance. And I'm not, understanding why, of all things. It was so intense, the noise that I heard, that just my bowels were just like, and I was like, wow. It was so intense, that noise, and it just sent my dog. One of them, there's another semi. All right, all right, all right. You might want to, yeah, come on now, mute me, because when they hear semis go by, they don't like
Oh,
them.
that's
So,
okay. That's okay. No, no, it's okay.
man, I tell you what, after I got inside, and I came inside, and I ran upstairs, and I immediately needed to use the restroom. Thank God, because I didn't hardly make it in time. And I'm thinking, why did I have to go this badly? What the hell was that,
Well,
And
it could be a couple things. Is number one, when you experience fear and fright, I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, the eyewitnesses. Those that something happened, and you see this a lot, or you hear this a lot rather, if we back up a little bit and we hear some of the war stories of men and women that went into battle. They were
yeah,
so frightened because they were being shot at, and it's not normal for a human to be shot at, right? So
yeah,
there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of training that goes in with our men and women in the military, but for it to really come to fruition, and in the reality hits that a human being is really shooting at you. You hear,
yeah,
especially a lot of the Vietnam stories, where a good friend of mine openly talked about that when he went into battle. It was well known that people didn't wear any underwear because
yeah.
when you went into battle, you just messed yourself. You
Oh
urinated on
yeah,
yourself and you messed yourself. And
I
so
can believe it.
if we fast forward to what happened with you, when you have a fear moment, your bowels are very much connected into your emotions. Now, here's the other part of this that is a possibility. I can't prove this, but I've had some eyewitnesses swear by this. That is, this growling has a portion of it that has infrasound. And the infrasound is more like a subsonic sound within a sound,
Yeah,
and it causes a disturbance that inside your guts. It can also have issues that can make you nauseated. It could give you a headache. It can make
yeah.
you disoriented. It's a number of different things. And so, is it possible that not only the fright, but also some infrasound took place? It's possible. It's
I
possible.
know that as soon as that happened, it was just like your knees buckle and you just feel like you can't even stand up straight. And I just knew, I was like, I could be ripped apart right now. And I don't know. I just was like, nope. My dogs, when they backed up to me, I knew it was something serious. They've never stood that tight to me like that, and they stand right on your leg. They know. They're like, you have a dog stand so close to you that their butt is literally pressed to your legs. You know that your life is in danger. Whatever it is, if it's, I've never had them do that ever. They've never done this, and I'm gonna have to start thinking twice to letting them out at night. But I mean, it they were backed up to my legs, and when they did that, and the noise, and they did the little and then they backed up, and then I heard the noise to my left, or my right, sorry, and I just bent down, picked them up with all the force that I could in my legs. My female bulldog weighs roughly 65 pounds, and
Wow.
my other dog weighs maybe another 30. So I picked 90 pounds up and just got going in that house as fast as I could. And I had to carry my dogs up them steps, but none of it it didn't even phase me. Just the adrenaline alone, just getting them up and then getting them in there as fast as I could. I took like 2, 3 steps to get up those. It's only 3 steps. So I had to I just took 2 steps, man. I did it in like a 2 quick stride. I just 1, 2, and I got up there, and my last foot, I was just thinking, like, when you turn off the lights at night and you're thinking something's gonna get you, and then you go through the house and you turn off all the lights and you just you have that sensation that something's gonna snag your foot or touch you, and
Mm-hmm.
my back just felt so bare. I felt like something was just shooting daggers at me. The terror that you feel is just, it's unreal. Through that whole thing, I think I mean, it's a stress level that puts you close to like cardiac arrest. Because I tell you what, your heart, when you can hear your heart louder than you're breathing, and that is something that tells you like this. It was so out of this world what happened last night. And then after I got inside, that ain't even the end of it. Shit happened after too. So I was sitting and I had gotten inside and I literally I had to immediately use the restroom. And I felt just so embarrassed about even mentioning that. But, you know, what can you do? And I'm sitting there on the toilet and, you know, I hear this noise coming from my front room. And I'm thinking, oh, please, God, no. Let them please not get in. And I'm already, kind of keen to the fact, but it was more of an aha moment after because, just thinking like there was probably two, but I was kind of like already assuming. But so I heard this noise while I'm using the restroom, and I'm like, oh my God, not now of all time. And I pull them up, and I go out there, and my dogs are just right up against the glass window, man. They're right against that glass window, and they're rah, 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 rah. So I had to get my dogs away from the couch. I have about a 5.5 foot tall window off the ground, and it had it has a sheet that hangs down, and so I couldn't actually see out of it. But for every bit of a grown person I am, I'll stack up to a crackhead at a gas station any day. But there was nothing in this world that was going to make me peel back that fucking sheet.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, I don't blame you.